The Gospel According to Satan. 8 lies about God that sound like the truth. Hi, Jared.
How are you, Steve?
It's good to have you back on. A lot of
It's
guests.
good to be back on.
And I'm glad. Where in the world did you get this from? C.S. Lewis and Screw Tape, or was it just you woke up in the middle of the night and God gave you where did you get the idea of the gospel, or did a publisher give it to you?
Yeah, no, it was actually somebody else's book that I was browsing through at a bookstore, and I thought, if the devil wrote a book, it would look like this. And then the light bulb went off, and I thought, let me write a book like that. A lot of the cliches or the popular slogans that I take through in each chapter is really indicative of the way we project our own kind of sentimentality upon the idea of God.
But some of those lies are ones that I'm kind of happy with. And what do you mean God doesn't want me to be happy? I thought that's what this was all about.
Yeah, well, the key word, the first lie in the book that I take on is God just wants you to be happy, and I think the just is probably actually the key word there, as little as it is.
So he wants
but it's
you
really
to
just the idea that, it's really just the idea that that God's overarching concern is that you have everything that you want in life, and that he's more concerned about your happiness than he is in anything else. And so what I say in the chapter is that he's not unconcerned about your happiness. In fact, he came in the flesh to make our joy complete, to make our joy full. So he's not disinterested in our happiness, but he's not just interested in our happiness, which kind of redefines the way that we look at what makes us happy and what doesn't. I mean, part of the reason for picking these particular quote unquote lies is because I know that they're somewhat popular and have, infiltrated kind of the evangelical jargon. So the way people, respond usually has to do with me kind of stepping on some toes a little bit. Just for instance, when I talk about you need to let go and let God, which is, probably one of the most, ancient cliches in evangelicalism. When I mentioned critiquing that on Facebook recently, I had some folks get, a little irate about it. But sometimes it has to do with their interpretation. Somebody who says you need to let go and let God, for them, all they mean is you need to place your faith in God or something like that. But for others, it implies a kind of passivity. I think it can be harmful when said to other, to people, because it kind of implies like, there's a trust you haven't unlocked yet for your blessing or something like that. Is when people, when someone's going through a crisis or trouble of some kind, and then some well-meaning person says to them, you need to let go and let God. I think that can actually be spiritually harmful, because it sort of implies that the reason there's troubles going on in your life is because you haven't trusted rightly or had faith in the right way or something like that. And it really has a root in kind of this higher life, almost like a Christianity 2.0 sort of idea. And so I come at it really with two different angles, which is to say, do we all need to trust God more? Of course. But the fact that there's trouble in your life isn't because he's punishing you because you haven't, trusted in the right way or embraced the right kind of passivity or something like that. And then just the notion that we let God do anything, I find theologically problematic as well, so to speak. And some of the lies that, I take on in the book aren't things that have necessarily taken hold within Christianity, but sometimes just in the culture, like you only live once and those sorts of things. They're just popular, slogans. But what I do in the opening of the book is what I call the anatomy of a lie. And what I try to do is trace it all the way back to the first temptation and the things that the forbidden fruit held out to Adam and Eve, and see that really the germ of every lie is right there. There's a threefold appeal. When Eve looked at that fruit, it was dazzling to the eyes, so it looked good, it looked pretty, it promised to satisfy her hunger, and it held out a kind of enlightenment. Or the devil said that you can be like God. There was a power or of a possession, and it's the same three things that the devil tempted Jesus with in the wilderness as well. You see a parallel. Each of those three appeals is there. And so I see that really in the DNA of all these things. The reason why they stick around and why they we tend to even spiritualize them and try to make them Christian, is because they appeal to something inside of us that's fallen, some satisfaction in ourselves, or they just sound good. They're very delightful, or they sound pretty to us, or they promise some kind of enlightenment. Like, now I've got the truth. I have a deeper or more profound sense of reality, when really there is, no deeper reality than the reality of God's truth. Yeah, so I came across this article about Kylie Jenner and her cosmetic company, and she's apparently like the youngest billionaire, or the first youngest person to reach so many $1 billion or something like that. And the article was really It was really fascinating, because it wasn't simply a small business success article or a business success article. It was basically, what have you done with your life? and and I just thought, man, this is, first of all, I'm old enough not to get baited by that. But there's a lot of young folks chasing this mercurial, influencer label, for which the Jenners and the Kardashians are kind of the, hallmarks or pioneers of. And so I think the world is really, it's not new. It's certainly not a new lie that, your life is what you make it. But the idea that you could parlay an image, a brand, a product into your own identity, that it becomes to define you. And I think that's one of the pitfalls of social media, in particular, like Instagram and things like that, where, the real life and product placement is beginning to kind of blur. The lines are getting blurred. And I think one of the lies that, the world, and I think even the church is falling prey to, is this idea that you're a product. You essentially are a commodity to be used, to be commercialized, to be monetized, and really that's all there is to life, is to climb that hill of becoming a big influencer, or maximizing your profit, whether that's in influence or in money or what have you. And that's real. I mean, that is a lie, because essentially it's placing. It's as if the devil is showing us all the kingdoms of the world and saying, all of this can be yours, as if that's all there is, as if that isn't passing away. And so I think it's something that, certainly the world is falling prey to, but I don't know that we can draw a stark line and say that, that's the world and not the church, because Christians are falling into that every day. It's an enthronement of self over God. It's a denial of his sovereignty. It's a denial of his kingship and his lordship. It is, I can be God instead of God, or I can be God along with God. And if your life is what you make it, we're essentially saying to people who encounter suffering that's not of their own choosing or not of their own will, that they don't have what it takes, that there's something that they've done that is, outside this magic formula, and it can be spiritually abusive in that way. I would love to take some of these messages and see how they translate to third world countries where people are mired in suffering, disease and poverty, and say, hey, look, your life is what you make it. What have you done with your life? What I love about Job is in that early, in the early exchange, the devil has to get permission from God to tempt Job. I like, Martin Luther says, even the devil is the Lord's devil. And the idea is that he is not sovereign. It's not a yin and yang relationship. He is on a leash, and he can only go so far as God will allow. And of course, someday he's gonna, yank up that leash and throw the devil into the lake of fire. So the victory is secured by the cross and resurrection. The victory will be consummated at the return of Christ. The devil has an expiration date for sure. The devil cannot invent or create anything of himself. His job is always to pervert, or his mission has been to pervert what the Lord has created, and try to get us either to adopt an unworthy embrace of a good gift that God has given, or to elevate the gift into the place of the giver, which is exactly what he does with Eve. It's exactly what he does with these lies that I work through in the book. And why they're so effective, because there's hints and seeds of truth in them, right? We just talked earlier about, hey, what's really wrong with let go and let God, or, God just wants you to be happy. And the truth is there's not something totally wrong about it, right? In Colossians 2:4, Paul says, I don't want you to be led away by plausible arguments. So the idea is that there are things that deceive us that actually sound true. There's outright blatant lies that most of us are savvy enough to reject, but then there's these things that have a hint of truth in them, or a bit of truth in them. And I think that's what the devil does with us, is he gives us just a little bit of truth mixed in with the lie that it sounds right, it sounds plausible. And so we take it because it feels good or sounds good, but really there's death hidden inside of that.